everyone, my name is Ronak and you're watching VectoArt. So in today's video we will learn how to create this login UI design using a UI library called HandyControls. So without any further ado, let's get started. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. It means a lot. So let's start by creating a new project. Make sure you are using Blend for Visual Studio. It is a tool from Microsoft, and then make sure you have selected WPF app using .NET framework. So once you do that, you will be seeing the triggers panel if you are going to animate the windows. But here in this design we are not going to animate any objects here, so that won't be of use. But make sure you select the project type as WPF with .NET framework. Now we have created the project. Now let's go to tools and open NuGet package manager, and here in the browse let's look for HandyControls. So this is the UI library that will help us in adding the extended controls. So the documentation for this is in the description, you can check that out. So click on OK, accept the terms and conditions. And once this is successfully installed, it will open a readme file which will help you install this or include this package in your application. So first let's copy the namespace on the top and paste it in the main window.xml file. Okay, add that namespace here. Now let's go back to that readme file, copy the whole resource and open the solution explorer and open the app.xaml file and place that copied text here in the application resources along with the namespace. Now let's save and build the application once, so that we do not identify any errors later on when we build the application. So let's build and check. So the build is successful. So after the build is successful, if you go under the controls, you will see a whole lot of new controls that are added to the toolkit. So the documentation for this you can find here. The link is in the description. So these are all the controls that are added, and it has a nice documentation with beautiful examples. So let's select the window now and go to its properties and change the width and height of it. So I'll set the width and height to 900 and 550. Check the allow transparency checkbox to get rid of the borders, and I think the window needs to be a little bit bigger. So let's go back and change the width to 850, and yeah. Now let's select the window, right click and edit template and edit a copy. And I'm doing this because I want rounded borders for the window. So let's select the border in the template, scroll down and then change the corner radius to say 15. So now we have the rounded edges to the borders. Let's go back to the window. Now let's change the window color to say white smoky white color, and let's scroll up a bit. Now let's add a text box, or a text block, and let's type in some text. So here I'm typing welcome back. Let's select the text, go to the properties and change some of the text properties. For starters, let's align the text to center and change the font size to say 40. I think it should be a bit bigger. Yeah, so let's increase the size of that text block and add some subtext. Let's type in the text and then later on we will change the font size. Okay, let's type in the rest of the text. Okay, so that's done. Now let's draw a rectangle on the right hand side and change the radius to a rounded rectangle, say 10 points. Change the stroke to none and background to white. I'm making some changes to the window background color. Okay, now let's draw a line in between that rectangle that we just drew and change the stroke to black and fill to black and increase the size of that path. Now align it, change the position to center, and I think it's too black, so let's change it to a dark shade of gray. Yeah, that's fine. Now let's draw a button inside that rectangle that we drew. Let's adjust the width and height and right click, and let's right click now and edit its template and make sure you edit a copy. Every time we do this, let's edit a copy. If you edit the current template, then the template, if it is being used by other buttons, the same changes will apply to all the buttons. So let's make sure we edit a copy. Now we have removed the stack panel, and under the border we have added an image. So now we will set the image source for that image that we have added. So these icons I have downloaded from icons8.com. You can check the link in the description. So yeah, I think the image needs to be a bit smaller, so let's change the width and height of that image. Okay, you can see that I'm not able to edit the changes here, so that is because we have to change this to a local value first. Only then we can change the value, as it is bound to the XAML code. So let's change the radius and see how this button looks first for both the borders. So let's go to properties and change the radius for this as well. Firstly, we'll have to change it to a local value, convert it to a local value, and then change the radius. So I think we will revert it back to the square button with rounded edges. Yeah. So let's stick to this and let's go back to the window. Copy this button that we created, and this time let's again right click and edit a copy, and let's go to the image and change the icon. So that's done. So let's run this application and see it in action once. Okay, so this looks good. So let's stop this application and let's start designing the other elements on the window. So let's scroll down and zoom out a bit. Okay, and let's draw a text block. Type some text. Here I am typing recent logins. Let's change the font maybe to semi bold. Okay, better. Now let's draw a rectangle, and we will house some of the buttons and images inside that rectangle. So let's draw that rectangle here first. Okay, let's zoom in. Okay, now let's draw a button on that rectangle. Edit a template, edit a copy. Under the border, let's remove the stack panel and insert an image. Okay, now let's browse for that image. Let's convert to a local value, change the radius to 30 so that we have a round border. Let's do the same for that other border that we have. Let's go to properties, source, and select the icon. Okay, okay, let's go to properties and convert this to a local value for the border brush, and also for the background let's convert it to a local value and get rid of the fill for both border and the background. uh, so let's convert that border thickness to a local value and change the border thickness to 0 so that we get rid of that border for the button that we just created. So let's go back to the window, and now we have to add an image in between which will show the user image. So browse. Okay, so our image is set. So let's add the username here. Let's align it to center. Okay, so let's select all these controls that we just created and group it into a grid uh, so that it will be easier for us to copy these controls. So let me first select them and right click, group it into a grid. So now let's make a copy of this grid and create multiple logins here. So this last one will be for the add new account button. So let's remove that image that we had in between. Let's change this text to add account. I think we can do the same for the other text blocks as well so that it aligns to the center. Okay, so let's change the fill of the rectangle to red and then change the foreground of that text block to white. Let's select the button that we had in between. I think we'll get rid of this button and create a new button altogether, so that will be easier instead of editing this button. So let's delete this and add a new button inside that grid. Yeah, so let's right click. Before that, let's remove the border for that and edit a template, edit a copy. Now under that border, let's remove that stack panel that we have and replace it with an image. Browse for that image and select the background, convert it to a local value and change it to something pink. Yeah, pink. Yes, that's the color. So now let's change the corner radius to say 30 and let's go back to the window. Now let's align this newly created button and let's zoom out. Now let's copy that text block that we have, increase its size and change the text. So let's change the alignment to center and change the font to bold. Since it is semi bold, it is not applying the bold property, so let's change it back to the normal font and then change the font style to bold. Okay, so next we need one more button which will play a video. So let's add that button. Follow the same steps like we did for other buttons. Right click, edit a copy, and there we will edit the template. So right click. Before that I have changed the color to orange. Now let's click on OK. Go to that border, remove the stack panel and replace it with an image. Select the source for that image and scroll down and change the stretch to say fill, sorry, none. And now we have that button. So let's go back to the window, main window, and now we'll add one more text block next to it. So let's copy the existing text block and change the text to align to the left, remove bold and add that text that you want to display. So that's done. So let's move on to the bottom part where actually you can sign into the application. So let's minimize these grids that we have. Now let's look for a separator in the controls. So let's look for a separator control. It is basically a line. It comes in handy. So I think it is out of the window, so let's decrease the size of that first. Okay, so we need a text in between that, so let's add a text block and type the text or. Change the size font weight to bold. Decrease the size of the separator first. Place the or text in between and then copy that separator and paste it next to the OR. Okay, so that's done. Now let's add a rectangle below it, a white rectangle. Let's, yeah. So I'm looking for the text box here in the documentation. So we have this text box, so let's copy the text box code and let's paste it on our XML. So we have these text types. You can set the text type as number or URL. So based on that, it will allow the text to be entered. Basically, it will add a regular expression on that text box. So we have a text box here which has a placeholder text as well as a title. So I don't need a title here, so I will remove that title part and just retain the placeholder. So let's also change the placeholder text. Okay, so now we need a password box. So here we have a password box and we also have a documentation for it. So this password box also has some nice features like clear password, or you can also show the password. We can show an I button which on click will show you the password. So let me add this password box. Okay, and add the placeholder text as password, and then let's resize this password box. Okay, and go to this XML and add these two properties, so show clear button and show I button to true. So that's done. Let's align it to the center. Okay, let's select this fill and change the color to white, and also the other rectangles that we have. Okay, yeah, so that is done. So let's change the border brush for these two uh, text boxes. Okay, now let's add one more control, that is the checkbox, which will serve as a remember me checkbox. Okay, now let's add a forget password text box, a text block. Change the text to forget password. Also let's select the text and add an underline to that word. Okay, so now let's add a button. So this is for sign in. Let's change the color. to dark green, and foreground color border brush to none, and foreground color to white. Let's change the content to sign in. Let's duplicate this button. I'm using the Alt key, holding on to it, and then dragging the control using the mouse. So that doing so, we can copy the controls, or you can normally just select the control, copy, control V and control C and control V to copy and paste on Windows. So let's align these two controls. So I have some other sign in options as well, so I will increase the size of the window, increase the size of the rectangle. For some reason the two text boxes, the password box and the text box that I added has also increased in size. So let's revert it back. Okay, so I think the space, we need a little more space, so let me increase the window again. Okay, that's enough space. So let's add a separator again. So let's copy that what we have on the top, hold the Alt key and drag it using the mouse. So let's decrease the size of the separator to align it with the buttons. Change the text, increase the size of the text block, align the text to center, and now add 3 buttons, one for Google, one for Facebook and one for Twitter. So let's add that button. Let's follow the same procedure that we did for the buttons on top. So edit the template, edit a copy, remove the stack panel and replace it with an image. Okay, browse for that image. There. So let's convert that background to local value and remove the background for both the borders and the border brush. So let's go back to the button template, make copies of this button that we just created, and again go to edit a copy, edit a template, edit a copy, and change the images. So right click, edit template, edit a copy, and go to the image under the borders and replace it with a different image. Do the same for the last button. And there you go guys, our UI is ready. Hope you all liked watching this video. If you do, please subscribe to my channel, and if you like this code, you can go to the GitHub repository. The link is in the description. One last thing that I forgot to do is make this window draggable. So if you go to the window and go to the events in the properties panel, here in the mouse down event, we can add one new event on the mouse down. Double click on that and it will create an event in the code behind file. Here type if e dot change button, if it is equal to mouse button dot left, then this dot drag move. simple. So let me run this application. Again, please subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. Bye bye.